Hi, Shane.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
I'm good.
My first question was, have you been getting my emails?
No, no, actually.
Okay, that's what I thought was happening because I have been emailing you like crazy
Yeah.
because it keeps saying that it's not sending and then I'll say it's sent and then I'll like a couple hours later I'll be like it didn't send.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get any emails from you.
Okay, I'll figure out what's going on. Sorry, I have no idea. But I thought we were meeting at 2 today. I just saw in my inbox that you said 1:20, so I was like, oh, maybe he didn't get my email.
Oh
But I
yeah.
said 2 was okay.
Yeah. Um, yeah, because you scheduled for one and I sent you an email earlier this week asking about if we could meet at two, but yeah, I didn't get any.
Yeah, I think I replied to that one right away, but I don't know what happened. I'm gonna figure out what's going on.
Sure.
My laptop has been acting up, which is why I had to move our meetings to today because I thought it was better, but maybe it's still whack.
Mm-hmm.
But I did take full length one.
You're putting my phone number in the chat, so if you see that your email,
Yeah,
you can just text me.
okay, perfect. I think I have it already, but let me just double check. Yeah, I do have it. Okay, I'll just text you in case they don't go through. Okay, but yeah, I did take the full length. And I did for a couple points better than my, what was that?
Uh,
I took blueprint one.
Let me say, oh yeah, the one on the Tuesday to the 29th.
Yeah, I changed my schedule around a little bit and I was wondering if we could adjust it a little bit because I was gonna say it takes me a really long time to go through the full lengths because obviously I'm not doing that great right now. So like I had like it took me
Are you-
2 days to go through the blind review and regular review.
Okay. Well, the blind review is just when you try the questions that you got wrong.
Oh, I thought I did the whole exam again untimed.
Uh, no, yeah.
Okay.
So for the blind review, like whichever questions you got wrong, you're gonna write down what those questions, like which questions those are, and then you're gonna
Mhm.
do the new attempt untimed, but just doing the questions that you got wrong.
Okay, that might help me cut down my time a little.
So, okay, what was the score breakdown?
So, do you want like the timed one or the untimed one?
Oh, yeah, the timed one when you took that.
Let me go back really quickly.
Yeah, I also have a tab called full lengths or FLs in the spreadsheet, so you can use that also to update your
Okay.
test results and stuff. And you used something other than Blueprint for cars?
Yeah, I use Jack Weston because I have never taken like the Los Angeles and all of that stuff.
Got it.
Oh, I'm supposed to fill out this chart. I see. Okay, yeah, I have a list of everything like in like a notebook. I can just add it all in here, but I did exactly this.
Mhm.
But I got a 125 on Chem Phys. Untimed, I got 122 on cars, 124 on
Wait,
uh
what you mean like the timed ones?
oh, these are the timed ones.
Oh, I thought you said untimed cars.
No, that was timed.
So
So it was 125
between
Chem Phys untimed. 122 or sorry, these are all my timed. Okay. Let me just
like
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. 125, 122, 124, 126, I think. I don't remember if it was 126. I think it was 126
Okay.
first attempt. Yeah, I think it was 126 or 127. I can't remember.
Okay. So comes out to a 497 and
There's 126.
okay. So yep, I put it in the spreadsheet and
And
so
then I redid the cars completely untimed just so I could make sure I was doing my maps right and everything like that. So that way I had better timing. And when I redid the ones that I got wrong, and like the entire thing, I got a 127 without looking at anything. So I guess a part of it has to do with time because it takes me like I told you before, it takes me a really long time to do the maps. And even when I'm like shorthanding them, I feel like it still takes me
Mhm.
like I feel like 15 minutes to get a good grasp of the passage, which is so unrealistic. But
Okay. So uh yeah, that's definitely, something that we can work on. So from the test, do you have like any questions that
so I noticed a pattern of certain things that I missed. I'll just pull up the test
okay.
if you want now. Um, and then I can share my screen. And I flagged a couple things. I think it's this one. Yes. Okay. Um, so like a lot of the stuff that I missed was
Uh
like
I don't see what you're
oh, that's weird.
yeah.
Now
So
do you see it?
yeah.
Okay. So a lot of the stuff I missed was like also like analogy stuff that was like, oh, like this, like according to the information, a man's relationship to vision would most likely be like I continuously missed like the questions that were like this, that were like I guess like interpreting what was going on in the passage and then like kind of drawing it out and like comparing it to something else. Like I have a tendency to miss these because I guess like I interpret them wrong, like
Yeah,
because
the analogy.
like I don't know how to approach these.
Okay. So uh do you think we should go well, we could do this. I can like read it and think about what I would put in a map, and you already have a map for this, right?
I think I should actually I did these on my like MCAT pad and I erased them all.
Okay.
So I might have a couple from when I read. No, I erased them all. Because I was trying to like emulate like the testing conditions. So I probably should have taken a picture of that. But
hmm okay. So is this so yeah, how do you want to spend the time today? Do you want to go over like cars passages like this? Do you want to go over some?
well, since I got a 122, I feel like I really need to like put all my efforts into cars right now to at least get it to like a 125. Because the other scores, like Chem Phys, like the first time I tested, I got a 123, but now I'm kind of up to a 125. So I feel like I recognize kind of what I need to do. But with cars, I like don't know what I'm supposed to do better other than like the maps and stuff, to which I see improvement, but now I don't know how
Okay.
to do it with the time frame.
Okay. So you want to go over this one?
I guess maybe we could pull up a new one and then
Mhm.
kind of do it together because I've already reviewed the entirety of this exam.
Yeah. So these types of questions, do they like this one in particular, does it make sense now or does it?
Yeah, it makes sense, but like in my head, like when I was like taking the test, like and maybe it's dumb, but like I'll like think of like a relationship, like I'll be like, oh, man's relationship to vision is kind of like it evolved. And then at first, the first time I took it, I thought it was an apple to its seed because it's like evolution and that's what it talked about in the passage. So I like will come up with this like obscure connection, I guess, that like the passage is not looking for.
Okay,
But
let's take a look at this for a sec. So
okay,
in terms of these relationships, what is uh what is the relationship between a car and its gas?
um, like the gas powers the car. You need it to drive.
Good. So the gas on its own isn't really doesn't really matter, but in the context of a car, the gas is what it uses as an energy source. Uh,
Hmm.
and then B, an apple to its seed. Apple, the seed grows into the apple. So they're the same thing, right?
Yeah.
And a camera to its lens. The camera is the thing that can take the picture. The lens is like the um where the light comes in, and then a computer to its processor. So I think in this passage, I think I remember it. I think it's by uh Jacob Bernowski. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That guy's that guy's awesome. But he made a really awesome like series called The Ascent of Man. But anyway,
Mhm.
yeah, so I remember this passage, and the big thing that they were saying is that the eye does not work like a television camera, right?
Mhm.
Or so people used to think that the eye worked as a television camera, right? So you eventually say that that is not how it works, right? And that it's really that vision occurs in the brain. So right away we can say, okay, the camera to the lens part, which so I think D is the most tempting choice because
Mhm.
when we think of an eye or sight, we think of the eyeball, basically. Um, but I think the main idea for this passage was that, well, do you remember what you put for the main idea for this passage?
I think I put that it was like the eyes, like it was something about like the eyes like evolving to help us become like to help humans like like the importance of the eyes, something like that.
Yeah. So, so I mean, over here, where he says that it's not like, a television camera,
Oh,
that
I do have this one actually. My main idea, I put sight is I said sight is very important for human beings and has evolved to help us.
uh-huh. So yeah, um so yeah, in this fourth paragraph here, that's where they are telling you that like the brain is what processes vision, and it's not necessarily that our eyeballs are super, super, super evolved because we see that for like apes and stuff. But it's mostly that we can process that visual information in our brain. So we know we can get rid of the camera analogy because, he says kind of directly that it doesn't work like a camera. Um, so and then is vision something like that you use up, like a car to its gas? The gas fuels it, sure, but the gas also gets used up. It's a finite amount of gas. So
Mhm.
if you're like what in vision is finite. It's not like you're running out of anything, right?
Mhm.
And then an apple to its seed. Again, that's one thing growing into the other rather than two separate things. So
Mhm.
B is out. And then a computer to its processor. So it's like the computer is what you interact with, kind of like the eyeball. Um, but what's going on under the hood is the processor, the CPU, and that's like it's like so the computer is like vision or through our eyes,
Mhm,
and the processor is the part of our brain that processes that visual information.
mhm,
So you want to really uh try to differentiate the choices as much as possible. Like,
mhm,
like I know you said like a car, is powered by the gas. Um, but that could be you arguably like saying like, okay, the brain or whatever powers the vision or something, but uh,
mhm,
you want to be like as specific as possible. So that's why I'm also thinking like, okay, gas is finite, you run out of it. Um, but you don't run out of anything in terms of vision. And then for the apple and its seed, they're the same thing. Sure, one goes into the other, but they're still the same thing. And we're looking for separate things that are kind of related. So yeah. So okay,
mhm.
cool. Yeah, okay, let's see. Oh, and did you notice any particular type of passage category that you
Um, I feel like because I didn't finish. So like the end, like when I was looking at my score breakdown, like towards the end where I just guessed on everything, it was just red, 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 red. So I think that played into it. So I don't really know because I feel like I have like I feel like I was getting like
Uh-huh.
I feel like the passages that I read this time were really digestible. Like I understood them and it was easy. So I don't think it was so much the passage types as it was like particular types of questions that were throwing me off.
Got it?
Because I feel like I can somewhat get the main idea now, at least. It's
Got-
just like it takes me time to get there, which is my concern now. I don't know how I'm supposed to like fix that.
Yeah. So I mean that'll be fixed as you continue to do this stuff.
Hmm.
Today I can kind of like we can go over a passage and I'll kind of like ask you more so like what we should like put in our map and things like that.
Okay, yeah, that works. And then my next question was, can I adjust my study schedule to take my exams on like Tuesdays instead of Saturdays just because I have like other responsibilities, but I know realistically I'm supposed to be testing on a Saturday. Does that play a matter of like I should be testing every single day that I'm supposed to actually take the test or
Oh no, you could take them whenever you want.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that adjustment wouldn't be like a problem or anything like that.
Yeah. It's fine. Here, I'm putting a passage in the chat. It's probably this one.
Okay.
And yeah, let's scroll in a way that we can see the entire passage. Like, yeah. Yep.
Okay. So my profession of paleontology offered its entry to historical conundrums a quarter century ago. Okay. So this is about paleontology, um, and how it kind of entered history, I would say, very recently.
Um, Entering what about history? Because you want to,
It's historical conundrum.
what's that?
I can tell you.
I mean, um, what do you think it could be similar or
Like, um, like to me, it's kind of like it entered, like it's like kind of like I don't know, like it became kind of like a fascination almost.
okay. So that's fine because likely they'll elaborate, right?
Mhm.
Um, So, but we do have our new idea here, right?
Hmm.
And they're also giving us a little bit more information that we usually don't see, like the author explicitly stating that they are this profession. So let's say like
Hmm.
paleontology, historical conundrums, entry.
Hmm.
So that's our new idea. And
Hmm.
like always, I'm thinking, what do you mean by that? So we should see the author elaborate. So yep, you can.
Hmm. In 1953, Piltdown Man was exposed as a certain fraud perpetrated by a very uncertain hoaxer.
Okay,
So,
tell me about that.
Piltdown Man, I'm guessing that's something in like paleontology history or something, that came out to be a fraud.
Okay, so now since we're given a very specific example,
Hmm.
we could. So that's why I'm highlighting it in orange because this is
Hmm.
support.
Yeah. Since then, interest has never flagged. So since then, interest has kind of remained.
Hmm.
And then people who cannot tell Tyrannosaurus from Allosaurus have firm opinions about the identity of Piltdown's forger. So people who can't tell the difference between these two dinosaurs,
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
they just like I guess like people who don't really have like in-depth knowledge can't really tell or
Mhm.
have like very firm opinions on what Piltdown's forger or forger.
Yeah, so it seems like he's saying, okay, that people who don't know anything about this stuff happen to have very strong opinions about who's who the person who made the Piltdown Man like hoax.
Mhm.
So, okay, so now what can we write for this
So
paragraph?
I would put um in paleontology, Piltdown's um um Piltdown's man was found to be a fraud. And then something about like people like not having, or I would say like um people with who lack in knowledge can't have, or people who lack in knowledge about paleontology have firm opinions.
Okay, I put paleo entry historical conundrums. For example, in 1953, Piltdown Man fraud, ignorant
Mhm.
layman, strong opinion about identity of forger. So, do you think that would
Yeah.
be similar to what you would write?
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of what I would put.
Okay.
In 1912, Charles Dawson, a lawyer and amateur archaeologist from Sussex, brought several cranial fragments to Arthur Smith Woodward, keeper of geology at the British Museum. So it's talking about this person named Dawson who found cranial fragments and took them to Woodward. It's basically just like starting to tell a story, I guess, or like give us some type of insight into paleontology.
So, do you think I would highlight this in any type of color?
I wouldn't. The only thing that I would highlight, I guess, would be like the cranial fragments and maybe an orange, but I feel like I would have to keep reading to see if it's supposed to serve as some type of example for something.
So, we could
Well, a new idea hasn't been introduced, I guess, so maybe not quite yet. Orange.
so orange is just for support, right? Like
Hmm.
that can be an example, that can be like evidence.
Hmm.
So when we see things like, I mean, and ultimately facts, right?
Hmm.
So, uh, so, and typically if they give you like a year, that kind of shows you that it's like a fact. So it's saying that in 1912, this guy whose name sounds like Darwin, um, you know, found, brought some fragments of some old, skull.
Hmm.
That's like a fact. That can't be that's not an argument, right? It's an actual
Hmm.
fact. So
Yeah.
this is what I would do it in orange. So like, this guy brought cranial fragments to this other guy, like that. So
Okay.
we have, yeah, so we're starting off with support here. So it
Hmm.
would be like this. It would be like the first sentence of the first paragraph is the new idea, and that's because every sentence must be either new idea or same idea. Um, so it's new idea, and then the second sentence that says in 1953, Piltdown Man, that's same idea, but support with an evidence.
Hmm.
And then after that, people can't tell the difference between Tyrannosaurus and Allosaurus and identities and stuff. That's going to be like the uh this well, I guess it could become either a new idea by telling us that people who don't really know about this stuff have really strong opinions about the forger.
Hmm.
Um, And then in the next paragraph, we just have a fact over here, but yep, you can continue.
The skull appeared remarkably modern in form, although the bones were unusually thick. So, just talking about the skull that was brought and how it looked more on the modern end and how it was thick.
So you said it looked more like modern, and then you said it
Hmm.
was thick.
Yeah.
Um, do you think it being thick made it look less modern?
Well, it says unusual, so I'm assuming yes, that's made it look less modern, I guess, because it's thick.
Well, there's a different word in here that lets you know.
Um, the skull appeared remarkably modern in form, although the bones were unusually thick. Although,
So remember we talked about contrast words?
yeah.
So typically when I talk about that, I talk about it being important if a sentence starts off with a contrast word,
Hmm.
but contrast words are still contrast words. So if someone's saying that it appeared modern and then they say although afterwards, whatever came after, like it doesn't even matter if it's unusually thick, whatever
Hmm.
comes after must be different from it being modern or looking modern.
Yeah.
So, and then bones, very
Hmm.
okay.
Smith Woodward accompanied Dawson to Piltdown and there looked for further evidence in the spoil heaps. So they both went to Piltdown and looked for more evidence.
Okay. Hmm.
On one of their joint expeditions, Dawson found the famous mandible, or lower jaw. So they found the mandible.
Okay.
And then, like the skull fragments, the jaw was deeply stained, but it seemed to be as apish in form as the cranium was human.
What do you think that word is? The API.
Uh, um, like what do I think it means?
Oh, the word APISH.
Um, like similar in form, I guess.
maybe,
Or like odd, like oddly modern, I guess.
or maybe,
Um, like thick.
um, maybe like ape-ish,
Oh, apish. Sorry.
like with an like an ape.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense.
So, so they're saying that the jaw was apish,
Hmm.
um, but the cranium was more like a human.
Yeah.
Okay.
Although no one smelled fraud, the association of such a human cranium. Oh, I already read that, right? No, I didn't. Although no one smelled fraud, the association such as a human cranium with such an apish jaw indicated to some critics that remains of two separate animals might have been mixed together. So I would say
Any special word?
even so there's although
Yeah.
that we need to highlight.
Yeah. So now it starts a sentence. So I'm highlighting it. And
Mhm.
what are they saying here?
So even like it's kind of tying back to like the beginning where no one suspected fraud. Um, the fact that the human cranium was kind of like apish would show that the two separate animals could have potentially been mixed.
When they say like be mixed, what do you?
Like evolutionary wise is what I would think. Like common ancestor maybe.
Mm, so so okay, we kind of talk about this being like a fraud, right?
Yeah.
And we talk about how the skull part was human-like, but the jaw part was not.
Hmm.
So think about that and the fact that this is a fraud.
Hmm.
So now think about what it might mean to say mixed together.
Oh, that they took like apart from one animal and then apart from another animal and kind of mixed them together.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. Because in addition to the stuff that I was saying, like fraud and stuff like that, it does,
Hmm.
you know, that the remains of two separate animals,
Yeah.
right? So like
Hmm.
bones of two separate animals might have been mixed together rather than saying like this is an animal that has both, you know, human-like and ape-like characteristics.
Hmm.
That would be more so along the line of what you were thinking originally, but yeah, it's just literally the remains that get mixed together.
Hmm.
Okay, let's think
Okay.
about this paragraph. We could,
So I would say Dawson and Woodward found cranial fragments, went on expeditions, or found um, cranial fragments, or they found like a portion of the skull that looked modern, and they went on expeditions where they found a jaw that was ape-like, but could be that they two animals are mixed together.
yep, so skull modern, jaw apish, 1912. That's just the evidence that I'm putting in there. That and
Hmm.
odd maybe just separate animals mixed.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So when I like kind of say stuff, I guess maybe my problem that also takes me long is I come up with these like super elaborate, like what I think is condensed, but then when you put them, they're like so much more condensed. So like, what do you think I can work on? Because I know I'm supposed to pull them from the map, but I guess I also highlight a lot more than you do when we do these things. So like how can I kind of get better at like other than with time? Like do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, so that's why for that previous passage, I wanted to look at the map that you wrote,
Hmm.
but you don't have that map anymore, right?
Oh, I found it. It's like I have it right here. I can send you a picture of it if you want.
Yeah,
But my handwriting's a little messy.
yeah. So we could, yeah. So that's something that we can do. Like when we meet, we can go over a past,
Hmm.
do a map ourselves, and then we can directly compare that to the map
Okay.
that you have.
Yeah.
It's usually what uh, works for a lot of students, like having you make the map and then I make the map and we just kind of compare.
Okay.
But and also for the highlights, you could see that I'm not highlighting. I'm just highlighting like mostly
Single
like
words.
because I'm filling in the blanks in my head.
Yeah.
So, but as long as you can come out of like a paragraph being able to like take what's important from it, that's
Hmm.
the most important thing.
Okay.
So, yep.
Indeed, Piltdown never lacked detractors. So it never lacked detractors. I guess it's very self-explanatory.
So what does that tell me more? What does that, what does that mean?
So, like Piltdown, um, it like I don't know how I can put that. Like lack detractors. Like, do you want me to define like detractors? Would that be better?
Sure, sure. What's that?
It's like um like people who I guess like are like investigating among it and like looking for things, I guess.
So, I mean, what else though?
Um,
Think about, do you think it's a good thing or do you think it's a bad thing?
I would say it's like a bad thing to have detractors, I guess.
Yep. Because a detractor would be like someone who like thinks that
Like
you're
a forager, right?
not specifically that, but it's just if someone's so if so a detractor is just someone who like says that you're wrong or um kind of like discourages you from something.
Okay.
So if we're saying that Piltdown never lacked detractors, we're saying Piltdown Man has always had people who are questioning it,
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Okay.
Um, its temporary acceptance was born in conflict and nourished throughout by controversy. So I guess the best way to say this would be it like it was accepted for a little bit, but that acceptance came alongside a ton of conflict and controversy.
Yeah. So people from the get-go were skeptical about Piltdown Man, right?
Mhm.
Okay.
In the early 1940s, for example, Franz Weidenreich, perhaps the world's greatest human anatomist, wrote, Piltdown should be erased from the list of human fossils. It is the artificial combination of fragments of a modern human brain case with the orangutan-like mandible and teeth. So this is evidence.
Yeah. Right.
Um, and it's going into like it's saying that the greatest human autonomous was literally saying that it should be removed from the human fossil list because it combines two different animal structures.
Okay.
So Others voiced strong doubts about the ancient manufacture of Piltdown's tools. So there are other people who were voicing doubts, but it was about the tools.
Okay. What can we put for this one?
So Piltdown always had um doubters, or they always doubted Piltdown Man, or it's always been surrounded by controversy and conflict. And then I would put wide and rich said should be erased, and then tools doubted.
Okay. Could say error to the above that its acceptance was always in conflict. For example, 1940s, this guy said it was a hoax, and there's also doubts about the tools.
Mhm.
So I should also say that so for instance, what's this word?
Anatomist,
What do you think that is?
like someone who studied anatomy.
Yep. Good. But yeah, what I was gonna say was, do you use Google Chrome?
I do.
Okay. There's a really good Chrome extension called dictionary where if you double click on a word, it'll open this small little thing that gives
Yeah.
definition. Now,
Hmm.
when you're doing cars practice and cars on your test, I don't want you to use that. But when you do your review, I want
Hmm.
you to use that just so every time we can kind of kill two birds with one stone by having you learn vocab every step of the way for
Hmm.
cars. Because while it's not completely required, it can
Hmm.
certainly help with um your comprehension. So,
Hmm.
because for instance, the first paragraph, first sentence, conundrum, like,
Hmm.
that is something that is it's all it's almost like a it's almost like a paradox. It's like an issue that can't really be solved.
Hmm.
And so um yeah, that could be useful to know.
Okay. So do you think also like one of the reasons why my cars could be like not as high as I want it to be is because of like vocabulary things and just like reading, like learning more definitions, but also reading more like science papers could help, or
Oh, no, no, no. So, yeah, I don't think from what I've seen that not knowing vocab has really had a negative effect on you. And
Mhm.
reading science papers are not going to be helpful. But if you want papers that you can read, in the shared drive, I shared the Google Drive with you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
there I have a lot of stuff there. There's
Okay.
there's a PDF there called Soft Skills,
Uh-huh.
and that one's really good for like I cite like a paper, like there's actually a published paper um called MCAT tips.
Yeah. I think I saw that on your YouTube,
Yeah,
or you
yeah.
talked about it.
Hmm. Yep. And what it essentially said was there's no alternative to just reading as much as possible,
Hmm.
but also things like this. So for instance, science, all the science passages are based on published science papers,
Hmm.
PhDs and doctorates and stuff, but we're never expected to know that stuff. We're just here to be able to look at some uh, complex seeming science passage, but
Hmm.
we're only expected to know like the very, very basic stuff. So the reading science papers, I don't think is going to be too useful, but
Mhm.
reading in general, like stuff like this, like editorials and like op-ed and things like that. Yeah, I'll show you more like I guess like after, but
Okay.
I have a lot of like good stuff in that soft skills doc.
Okay.
So like things like like the New Yorker or like
Yeah.
Harper's Weekly or like the Atlantic,
Uh-huh.
those types of publications and stuff.
Okay.
Yep. So
Um, okay. All this speculation provides endless fun and controversy, but what about the prior and more interesting question? Why had anyone believed Piltdown in the first place? So I would say, I mean, there's but here, and that's important, I would say,
yeah, I mean like it's not something that I would highlight because I only do that when the
when
first
it starts.
yeah. But that doesn't mean that there isn't a contrast word here because there is, right?
Mhm.
So so yeah, okay, so yeah, what are they saying here?
So I would say that even though there's like all this like fun controversy that exists, the question still exists. Why did anyone believe Piltdown in the first, or why anyone believe Piltdown?
Hmm.
It was an improbable creature from the start. So it I guess this is important because it's saying from the start it was like probably not real.
Uh-huh. But that's not new because we did say in the previous paragraph that
It's
just
been a fraud.
yeah, that people have always had doubts about it anyway.
Yeah.
Like never lacked detractors.
Uh-huh. Um, why had anyone admitted to our lineage an ancestor with a fully modern cranium and the unmodified jaw of an ape?
So this paragraph is really just asking rhetorically, why did people believe this?
Mhm.
Okay.
A human cranium with an ape jaw strikes us today as sufficiently incongruous to merit strong suspicion.
Oh, can you fix the scroll a bit?
Yes. Like, oh, I moved it. Sorry. Let me fix it. There.
Okay. So, yep. So what did you, okay, so the sentence.
Um, so, so already a human, like a human skull, an ape jaw, um, it should lead to strong suspicion.
So what about it?
Well, I'm gonna be honest, I don't know what this word means. So I don't know if it's that important.
Oh, so another thing with words, I don't know if I told you this, but if
Sometimes they throw in jargon. I think that's what you said. That's what you've said to me in the past.
I don't know. Just that like almost like 70% of the time that I ask a student what a word means, they
Hmm.
expect that they think that I'm expecting like a dictionary definition,
Hmm.
but the fact of the matter is that um well, the way that words work, so like English, 60% of it is based on Greek and Latin,
Hmm.
and what that means is you can figure out words a lot of times by recognizing what words are inside of it or related to it. And
Hmm.
undoubtedly, in your existence, you've seen something like this. So,
Hmm.
what maybe if you get rid of the IN,
Hmm.
that can help. What could that mean?
Um, like to me, it looks like, I mean, I don't know what congruous means, but it kind of looks like congregate, which seems like grouping, but I don't think that's right.
What about so any math term?
Um, um, I can't think of any in blanking. Congru. I can't think of any math terms either.
Something maybe in geometry.
Oh, congruent.
And what's congruent
So
mean?
like similar.
Huh? Or like kind of like equal. I mean, that's like
Yeah.
being pedantic because in math it's like they're similar, which is like
Alike, yeah.
yeah, it's like if you had like a 3, 4, 5 triangle and then you had a 9, um 16, 25 triangle. They're not
Hmm.
congruent because they're not the same, but they're similar, right?
Yeah.
But but yeah, if you also think about this context here, they're using this word to describe something like a human's cranium with an ape's jaw. And
Hmm.
they're saying that it doesn't match and therefore it's not congruent. If it did match,
Hmm.
it'd be congruent, right?
Hmm.
So so yeah, you can figure out a lot of the time what a word can mean if you
Hmm.
think about what words that you've seen uh that can help you. And that can be tough at first, but it's like part of like the overall kind of thing that you want happening in your brain, which is making lots of associations.
Hmm.
So um so yeah, if
Oh,
asking you or if you're thinking about what a word might mean, don't expect a dictionary definition. Just expect like, okay, maybe I can look into this word and look at things like within it. Um,
okay.
you'll see that a lot. Also with the word apish,
Yeah.
right? So you can see in terms of the context here, I'm going to just do it in light blue. Um, that the jaw seemed to be as blank. Let's say for the apish, we just leave it as a blank in
Yeah.
form as the cranium was human. So the cranium is human, right? And the
Hmm.
jaw must be not human.
Yeah.
And that can help you with that word,
Kind of getting down to it. Okay, yeah.
but
I
with
see.
the word apish.
Yeah.
So, okay, cool. So we're saying in this paragraph that it seems incongruous, right?
Yes.
Anything else here that tells us that that could be important?
Strong suspicion.
Um, so okay, let's do the next sentence.
Okay. Not sorry, my AirPods are dying. Um, where were we? Not so in 1913.
Okay. So
Oh, today. So kind of like
very,
time wise.
very, very good. Yeah, today it's obvious that it's, you know, incongruous, right?
Hmm.
But not in 1913.
Hmm.
So, and what we're trying to do now is to answer the question of why did people believe this in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So sometimes you can, so remember how we talked about main idea is just an argument in more than one paragraph?
Hmm.
And so far we've been seeing kind of like,
The same trend of it's a fraud.
uh-huh, and you know, about people having being skeptical, but now we're asking, okay, what for the people who are not skeptical, why would they believe it? But okay, good. Continue.
There are strong influences exerted by bias, largely cultural in origin, for brain primacy and human evolution.
Okay, so they're saying that there's some biases that are cultural, and there's this new term called brain primacy or primacy in human evolution. And whenever you see a new term, they're going to define it for us so you can continue.
That the brain evolved before any part of the human.
Okay. So what is brain primacy? Primacy?
So the brain came before any other part of the body.
Good. And and then the first part of the sentence that says strong influence, blah.
Yeah, so there's like a bias that exists that is primarily cultural. So cultural bias.
And for who, what type of people?
Um,
Like people
um,
today or
for people in the past,
good,
for them to believe this.
good, good, good. So, okay. Brain primacy, that the brain evolved before any other part. So that brain primacy is a cultural bias that could possibly explain why people back in 1913 thought that this was real. And it kind of makes sense. Kind of makes sense if you think about it, because if it's an ape jaw, human brain, you can say it's because the brain evolves first, so the jaw hasn't caught up yet. So, okay, cool. Continue.
The argument rested on a false interference from contemporary importance to historical priority. We
Uh,
rule today.
Try reading that again.
Read the sentence again. The argument rested on a false interference from
Oh, try it.
contemporary.
Try it
Hmm?
again. False. What?
False. Oh, inference. Sorry.
What is
Inference.
what is an inference, by the way?
Like coming to your own conclusion,
Yeah, so it's
like based off of some knowledge that you have or some evidence you're given.
yeah, exactly. Cool.
Inference from contemporary importance to historical priority. We rule today by virtue of our intelligence.
Okay, what are we saying here?
So there's a false belief, um, from contemporary importance to historical priority. So for me, I don't really know what they mean by saying that.
So the part that says the argument rested on, what's the argument they are talking about?
The false, like the cultural origin that the brain came, like brain primacy, basically, I guess. The
Good.
brain came before the rest of the body.
Good, good, good. And yeah, that argument rested on the false inference that um that comes from using contemporary like importance like of like let's say today, the historical priority.
Hmm.
In other words, that we rule today because of our intelligence. So it makes sense that that is what evolved first. But
Hmm.
let's see if that's the case, right?
So I should just keep reading.
Mhm.
Therefore, in our evolution, an enlarged brain must have preceded and inspired all other alterations of our body. So, in our evolution, a large brain had to have come before any other changes in our body.
Yep. And that's not new, right? Because we said that before in this
Yeah.
good.
Sorry, one second.
Hmm?
Okay. So, yeah, so we already said that. We should expect to find human ancestors with enlarged, perhaps nearly modern brains in a distinctly simian body.
Okay, what's that saying?
So we would expect to find like our ancestors, people before us, like in the past, with large and modern brains with a less modern body.
Okay. And so is this something that is a fact here, or is it something else?
That's kind of evident. That's evidence for like what they're talking about in terms of like the evolution, like
Well,
we would expect to see.
so it does say we should expect to find, but doesn't say that we found anything like that, right?
Oh, yeah, so I guess it's just a new idea of what we would have seen, but not really, it's not necessarily evidence.
Yeah. So it'll be the same. So like for this paragraph, the new idea is that um this hoax seems obvious today, but not back in 1913. And back then, there are cultural biases like brain primacy that lead us to believe that, the brain evolved before. And so if that is true, we should see or find human ancestors with like big heads, but less developed bodies. So
Yeah.
the brain primacy theory or whatever is true, we should see that, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then it says, ironically, nature followed an opposite path.
Hmm.
Our earliest ancestors were fully erect, but still small-brained.
Good.
So it's actually the opposite that we see throughout history, is what this is trying to say.
Mhm.
And then, thus, Piltdown neatly matched a widely anticipated result. So Piltdown matched what we expected, I guess.
Uh-huh. It's like, and it neatly matched it, right?
Mhm.
So that's interesting. Okay.
Um, Grafton Elliott Smith wrote in 1924, the outstanding interest of the Piltdown skull is in the confirmation it affords of the view that in the evolution of man, the brain led the way. Oh, sorry, let me stop.
So this is another evidence, right?
Yeah, so evidence, and it's saying that what the skull of Piltdown is interested in is is brain primacy, basically.
Okay.
It is the various truism that man has emerged from the simian state in virtue of the enriched of the structure of his mind.
Okay. Okay. What can we put here?
Um, so I would say, um, 1913 brain primacy originated from cultural biases, but this was the opposite was seen.
So today incongruous, but in 1913. there's cultural biases, brain primacy that supports the hoax. And that's from the evidence from 1924. But in actuality, it's the opposite.
Mhm.
So, okay, continue.
So, Piltdown also supported some all too familiar racial views among white Europeans about the factual, inaccurate size of their brain.
Okay.
So, it's talking about racial views with inaccurate size or with white European inaccurately sized brains.
Okay, so we have a new idea here. Good.
The 1930s and 1940s, following the discovery of pecking man in strata approximately equal in age with the Piltdown gravels, phyletic trees, phyletic trees based on Piltdown, and affirming the antiquity of white supremacy began to appear in literature.
All right, so tell me what's going on here.
So there's this discovery, the pecking man, which was about the same age that like they like made these like phyletic trees, which kind of like they used to like prove white supremacy in literature.
Yeah, it seems like they're saying that they found Peking man and approximately equal in age with the Piltdown man. And what I think they're going to say is, and it kind of makes sense, but the Peking man should have a smaller brain, um, because it's an actual creature that. But Piltdown man, they just used a regular human's head, which is likely bigger than that of Peking man. So they could say this is proof that, if whites are smarter or something like that from the get-go.
Um, Peking man lived in China with a brain two-thirds modern size, while Piltdown man, with its fully developed brain, inhabited England. So it's giving locations, one in China, one in England, and the size is smaller in the one that's from China.
That is exactly what I was thinking that they were going to go. So good, good, good.
Piltdown, as the earliest Englishman, was the progenitor of white races, while other hues must trace their ancestry to Homo erectus, then whites crossed the threshold to full humanity long before other people. So
Yes.
it's saying that white people developed, it's saying that Piltdown Man, it was like they used Piltdown Man to say like white people hit full humanity before other races.
Mhm. So we could say that they think that Piltdown was the earliest or progenitor of the white race, whereas non-white races can trace it back to like Homo erectus, which I believe is what Peking Man was, um, and that whites were able to become fully human faster. Um, as longer residents in this exalted state, they excel. So, okay, let's see. Full humanity before others, and that, you know, whites were existed longer in this smarter state, and that's why they excel in arts and civilization. So, what can we put for this?
I would say that um I would say Piltdown Man versus Peking Man supports racial views. Um, Peking Man, smaller brain.
So racial views comparing Peking Man in parentheses China small brain with Piltdown Man parentheses England large brain, and that supports white supremacy. So, all right, let's see. So, paragraph one, the author says that, you know, um, that I'm interested in Piltdown Man being a fraud, and people have strong opinions about who made the identity of the forger. Paragraph two, we say that we found like Piltdown Man to have a modern skull and an apish jaw. And in 1912, Dawson said that it must be a fraud because it's likely that the two separate animals, like they just took bones from two separate animals and mixed them. Then paragraph three says that, this was never truly accepted. There's always been people who had doubts and called it a hoax. In paragraph four, we kind of like pivot a bit by saying, you know what? Why would people even believe this? Like, why were they, you know, gullible in this sense? Paragraph five kind of answers that by saying that there's cultural biases like brain primacy that gets kind of confirmed by the hoax. But in actuality, it's the opposite. And then paragraph six, we have the racial views, which
Yeah.
could also be a cultural bias, right?
Yeah.
So, what can we put for our main idea?
So I would say Piltman was a fraud based on past cultural biases.
Uh, Tell me that again.
So Piltman was a fraud based off of past cultural biases. Is that too generic?
You could get a little bit more specific.
Um, so I would say Piltman was a fraud of Piltman was a fraud of a mixed human skull and
Oh,
a
I just mean like exactly what you said prior.
yeah.
You said you said like people believed in Piltdown Man even though it was a fraud because of cultural biases. I think you said that, right? So I would
Yeah.
just add to that like brain primacy.
Oh, like brain premise. Yeah. Okay.
So it's basically what you said, but you want to be more specific about what are those cultural biases?
So in that case, if I'm like, so brain supremacy is most important, but would I still want to put like white supremacy, even though that's more of a localized argument, or would that not really matter?
That's a good question. I was thinking whether I should put it in or not. But since it's only in one paragraph, I don't think I would put it, but maybe I can put perhaps brain primacy slash white sup. So people believe Pittman Piltdown, which was a fraud because it reflected cultural biases like brain primacy as well as the white supremacy. All right. So yep, you could take why don't you take a screenshot of like yeah, everything. Perfect. You got it?
Mhm.
So all right, we can start this. Ironically though, this thing here, I remember when I was in college, my biochem professor was asking us, what made us evolve. And like at the time I was reading this book called The Dragons of Eden, which is by Carl Sagan. It's a book about how the brain have you ever heard of like the triune brain?
No, I haven't.
It's like it's like there's three main things well, brains in the brain structure, and like the first one that evolved is like the lizard brain, and then you have like the mammal brain where, and then you have like the leap in cognition, and then that's like the human brain. So
Yeah.
I was saying like, hey, it's because of the brain. And he was like, no, it's because of the ankle.
Oh,
Yeah. And that let a person, because if you think about it, other animals, like they are not bipedal, so they don't have the use of their hands the way we do when we're fully erect.
yeah.
And we can use our hands to manipulate and do complex things. And also, like, I think he said that like we would break. Oh, he said that we ate roadkill by saying that we just would see like an animal that's dead or whatever, and then we would take the bones and like crush it and suck out the bone marrow. And but yeah, interestingly enough, like yeah, it's because of the ankle rather than the brain. The brain. So I was believing in the brain primacy.
Yeah.
So
Interesting.
mhm. So all right, cool. So let's try this out.
Okay. So, according to the passage, the Piltdowns man forgery involved all the following except which one? So, ancient tools, that was explicitly mentioned in paragraph 3. So I would eliminate that one right off the bat.
Yep, and the reason for that would be contradiction.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then animal bones, it talks about the apish jaw, so I would eliminate that as well.
Okay. And you know there are keyboard shortcuts for that, right?
I think it's different on the Mac than it is on like the actual test day one. So whenever I get used to using it on the Mac, whenever I try to use it on test day, I have to like adjust.
Well, it could be just called differently, but where is the location?
It's Command Shift 4, I think, but that's highlighting. I don't know the strike through one actually, now that I think about it. I guess I could Google it.
I mean, I could tell you,
Yeah.
um, but you're sure
It's
in that you have to press shift?
maybe it's Command. Or it's oh no, don't
Mhm.
want to do that. Ah, sorry.
So, what's the alt equivalent for Mac?
I think it's Command.
Okay, so try like selecting a word,
Yeah.
hold Command, and then hit H.
No, it doesn't work. I think it's maybe it's I remember learning how to do this. Ah, sorry.
What's the other key that you have other than Command? Because okay, I think Command is Control.
I have
All right,
option.
try holding Option and pressing H.
Oh, option H. Okay. Yeah.
So now, if you hold that, and now you hold Option and then hit the S button.
Oh, okay. Nice.
So yeah, because like the thing is on the Mac, it's just different names for it. So for a PC, Control is for the is for a Mac. What was it? Command.
Command, yeah.
What were the two Mac ones?
There's command and there's option. I think command is
Oh, Command is Control,
yeah.
and that other one you said was Option.
Yeah.
Option is Alt.
Interesting.
It,
Yeah, maybe I just built in that I needed to hold command 2 or something in my brain, and that's why I
Yeah,
thought it was different.
that's because like for like Microsoft Word and all of that like stuff,
Mhm.
it would be with the shift button as well.
Mhm.
Uh, but what I also wanted to ask was that option button, where is it located on your keyboard?
It's right next to control.
Uh, Tell me like because I don't know where that is, but like relative like to the space bar.
So it's two away from two to the left of the space bar. But it's on both sides. Like it goes option, command, keyboard, command, option.
Okay. Oh wait, it's where it so the command, sorry, the oh I see. Okay. So because like yeah, what I would do is I would have like my thumb on the Alt button, which is right next to the one that's to the right of the space bar, and then like my index finger on the H and like my ring finger on the S. And you can then like if you double click on a word, it'll select it, and then I can use that shortcut. But I think for the Apple, it's might be like one too far. And so
Yeah, too far.
um but okay, cool. So all right, let's do this.
I think ancient pottery it doesn't mention anywhere.
Mm.
And then human bones, it mentions the human skull.
Mhm.
So we can deduce it down to that.
Yep.
Oh wait, I can do solution.
Mhm.
Okay. So information in the second paragraph suggests that the author probably believes that ancient human ancestors were more likely to be found in continental Europe countries
Oh,
than
so every question can either be a main idea question, which means the answer can be in more than one paragraph, or a structure question, which means it's in one paragraph. Uh,
yes,
is this a main idea question or a structure question?
structure because it tells us exactly where to look.
Good. And now this means that if we find answer choices that are talking about things in other paragraphs, we could eliminate that for the reason of localization.
Yeah, so where it says we're more likely to be found in continental Europe countries than in Great Britain, it doesn't say it mentions continental Europe or at least England in paragraph 6, but it doesn't say.
Um,
So, but I don't think it says anything.
so they said England is where the Piltdown Man was.
Yeah.
That would be in the Great Britain part.
Uh-huh.
So the continental European part would not include England then, right?
Yeah.
So, and so first of all, this is clearly not, what they're talking about, right?
Yeah.
We could eliminate it for like out of scope, but I always want to give you like more than one reason that you can eliminate this, and it's that although you said that they mentioned England, which is true, this choice A is not if it just said Europe, maybe, but it's saying continental Europe rather than England.
Yeah.
So it's even more wrong because of that. Uh,
Yeah.
and just so you know, continental Europe is Europe that's part of like the continent,
Mhm.
whereas Britain is like that island that's not part of the continent.
Yeah.
So, so yeah, we can eliminate A for both out of scope um as well as
I think
perhaps contradiction because they said Dan in Great Britain, but yeah, okay.
had bones of varying thickness. So it did mention the thick bone, but I'm trying to remember if that was in paragraph 2. I think it was, and I remember it said it was oddly thick.
Yep. So good memory because I didn't put that in paragraph 2, but perfect example of localization because it's in a. Oh wait, sorry, wait. I'm looking at the wrong paragraph.
I don't
Paragraph
know if
2.
yeah, 2 here.
Okay. Now,
I don't
so
remember if it was in that paragraph or not though. But I feel like it was.
yeah, I think so too. So I think that um so we can't then eliminate this because of localization, so we can eliminate it based on that. But
Mhm.
let's see. But okay, how we can eliminate it for a different reason. Anything come to mind?
Um, it it didn't have multiple bones of varying thickness. It just was talking about the skull, right? Like,
When they said that you caught on to this when we first read it, when they talked about the thick bones,
yeah,
was that what was like the purpose of saying that, do you think?
that it was different than like it was just different than modern, I guess.
Yep. The unusually thick bones, right?
Yeah, like it's like unusual to have that thickness.
Yep.
Does that make
So we could say that since it's unusual that the author believes that ancient human ancestors should not have that, right?
Yeah.
And I remember there's another thing that helps us with that. So for instance, the so yeah, so here to here. So you notice the unusual part, which is great, but definitively speaking, it's because of although.
Yeah.
Because we said that the skull was modern, nothing wrong with that. Although, contrast word, meaning now we're going to say something that is not very modern, and that's that the bones are thick. So, like,
Mhm.
even if they, like, let's say didn't have the word unusual, you should still know that the thick bones is something that the author thinks is not very human-like.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
Okay.
Were easy to forge in the past. Um, I in I don't think that there's indication of it being easy to or wait, forge being like I guess like I guess forge being like forging like making up. So that could be it because they did mix the two together. Like they took like because it was separate animals, it could be that it was easier to forge that way. But there's no indication that I guess it was easy.
So, um, so we did talk about how, um, well, okay. So I guess elsewhere we talked about, you know, for instance, like in paragraph 5 or paragraph 3, we're like, okay, why do people believe this? It's so obvious that it's a forgery. But so this can be a little tricky, I guess, then um, because I guess it's saying that okay, back in the day when this happened, people believed it, but today we know it's not true.
Mhm.
But does that mean that it's just it was easier to make hoaxes with about human ancestors in the past? Um, kind of tricky, right? I don't think it means that it's necessarily easier to forge in the past. Um, just because most people still in the past. Okay, this actually works. Okay, so 1912 in paragraph 2, we said that the fraud was apparent from back then.
Mhm.
You know, uh,
So it could have been easy.
so yeah, it would probably not be easy because people still knew that it was a
It was
hoax.
big back then, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
And I mean, if it was asking about maybe paragraph 5, you can maybe make the argument that it was easier to forge back in 1913 because that's when it's not obvious like it is today that the body parts or the bones are incongruous. Um, but again, that's still that's still kind of tenuous because um, it could be not because it was easier to forge, but just because it matched the cultural biases.
Mhm.
So, um, yep, okay, yeah.
Would not have features common to both future and past evolutionary states.
Yeah.
Um, I guess this could work because it does talk about how part of like the skull is modern, but then like it's unusual for it to have the thickness.
Mhm.
So that could work.
Yeah, right. Because the future could be the brain part, the past, the jaw part, and the author throughout the entire passage talked about how unlikely it is to have such, separate kind of body parts. And that's what we said in paragraph 2. So, okay, good.
According to the passage, why did a British racial assumption help convince people of Piltdown Man's authenticity? So this would be a localized question to paragraph 6. And okay, should I read through the answer choices or do you want me to? Okay. Piltdown Man was found in rocks as old as those contained Peking Man. I don't think there's no mention of rocks as old
Well,
as like
are you sure?
I I mean I don't necessarily remember that. I remember they came like they had similar phyla.
So, so remember that we're likely not going to see things that are verbatim, but we did say that in the last paragraph we that they were found here. You can see. So discovery of Peking man in strata approximately equal in age with Piltdown.
Oh, so it could work.
So so A is a true statement, but a lot of times you'll see true statements, but we need to find the answer that answers the question.
Yes.
And um, so this can also be something that you can come up with your own answer.
Yeah. Um, why did British racial assumption help convince people of Piltdown Man's authenticity?
Mhm.
Um, I mean, from what I was reading, it would say that they developed faster, making them more superior with the brain primacy. That's where my brain would go.
Perfect. So now we know what to look for.
Yeah. They believe that the races of human evolved at different rate. That does align with what I was saying, that they developed faster.
Mhm.
They assume that people of different races had different brain sizes. They do mention, like, I mean, that answer just kind of throw me off because the brain found in China was different than theirs, as in it was three-fourths smaller. But I think the better answer would be the evolving faster.
So you can give me a better reason to eliminate C.
Um, it only talks, is it that it only talks about, well, it doesn't really, it only talks about white people, but it doesn't bring in like other races, like specifically different other different races.
So,
Or is it in the vocab?
oh no, so so B says that they evolved at different rates and that for the whites it was faster, but ultimately they still,
They still evolve to the same size,
whereas
just slow.
yeah, whereas C is saying people like of different races, like black, brown, whatever, Asian, white, like currently have different brain sizes,
Mhm.
right? So,
Okay. And then Peking Man was noticeably smaller than Piltdown Man. That isn't necessarily true. It only talks about like the brain being smaller, but there's no mention of like the actual body size.
mhm,
So I would go with B.
good. And yeah, and so when you answer these, like, the percentages that they give you can give you a lot of insight because it's like you could see how people would choose C, right?
Mhm.
So, um, so like this is why though. So like for instance, B, so C has something that B does not have that would make people choose C. What do you think?
B has something that C. Wait, what was the question? Sorry, could you repeat?
Sure. So we want to kind of get into the mind of someone who would choose, let's say, C. So what could be there's like a word or two here that make C stronger than B.
The different brain sizes, I would say.
Yeah, because
That's like directly mentioned.
yep. And B doesn't mention any brain sizes, right?
Yeah.
So, I think I told you before that most people like to match words, and
Yeah.
probably a reason for that. But also, like you're gonna get to the point where you're not gonna just be able to find the right answer, not just being able to find the wrong answer, but knowing why the wrong answer is wrong, and in more than one way, like wrong answer being wrong,
Mhm.
but also finding the trap answer choices, the ones where it comes down to 50-50, like this. And you want to be like, you want to kind of understand that choice C, 43% chose it. Like, it's not because they're just completely like, they don't know what they're doing. It's just that there must be some type of valid reasoning.
Mhm.
So, yeah, this is a good question.
Um, with which of the following statements would the author most likely agree? The brain is an organ that says little about what makes humans special. Um, I would say that I feel like this is wrong,
Yeah.
but it's the only reason I would say this is because this is like it's kind of like it's not really, I mean, I want to say it's not really discussed at a habit, but I know like last time before you told me that that's not like I should avoid doing that. But
Because it's like this. It's like which of the following statements, if true, right, would the author agree with?
yeah,
So
it's just,
yeah.
I mean, the author doesn't like. I guess like the brain is kind of made out to be important in this because it's what's causing the whole argument of oh, Piltdown Man had a bigger brain, developed faster. So I don't necessarily think that the author would think that the brain is says little about what makes the human special.
Yeah, so what you just said though, say that again before the last thing. So you said that what makes
Like
the yep.
so like the author kind of talks about how like the brain is special in the way that like for like evolutionary purposes and like with like how like in the past like one of those cultural biases is that they like white people would use it to say like oh like Piltdown Man is like us, he came from where like this general vicinity and he developed faster, which is why his brain is bigger, is kind of like the whole way of like making that argument special. Like
So does the author agree with that?
no, the author doesn't agree with that.
Okay. So what specifically does the author not agree with?
That like with brain primacy of like the brain coming first and the brain develop like with the brain being super important. So I guess that could work.
So um so okay, if it says the brain is an organ that says little about what makes humans special, um sure, we can perhaps leave that if you want. Let's look at B.
Be suspicious of science that confirms common knowledge. Um, there is a lot of mention of being suspicious,
Okay.
and but like I guess like the suspicion, like Piltdown Man, like the suspicions were obvious, so it wasn't confirming common knowledge, right? Like it was like from the get-go, the hoax was there. So wouldn't that make it like not really common knowledge?
So let's see. So what so okay. Science that confirms common knowledge. What anything in the passage that can kind of show that?
Um, I think when it's talking about like, well, I guess, well, it makes it out to seem like, I guess like in terms of like the structure of like the skull and it being modern and like the jaw, it makes it out to be that that's obvious. But I don't necessarily know if it's common knowledge because I remember in paragraph one it talks like about differentiating between like the two dinosaurs and like it makes it seem like someone like needs like in like a little bit of in-depth knowledge, I guess.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, let's try C.
Fraudulent science can be harmful in unexpected ways. And I feel like that's a pretty good answer choice because the fraudulent brain primacy, like the whole belief of that kind of leads to like then racial issues and things like that with like white supremacy.
Okay. And what about D?
Racism is logically incompatible with true scientific inquiry. Um, I want to say this is wrong because like they do find a way to like attempt to logically make it seem true. Like they like come up with like they try to tie it into science, which is why I would say it's also a super localized answer, and I feel like this is a main idea question.
So, um, okay, let's see. This is tough one here. Um, Now I'll kind of let us use this. Now, um, there was something that was said in that I didn't that I kind of I mean like I noticed it when I read it, but I didn't say anything about it, but something in paragraph 5 um towards the end.
Thus, Piltdown neatly matched a widely anticipated result.
Yeah,
Graph,
right there actually.
was it the neatly part? Like where it very clear cut matched like what we anticipated?
Mm-hmm. Like so prior to that, we were saying that if the brain primacy was true, we should find human ancestors with larger brains and more ape-like body.
Mhm.
And then after the parenthetical, we say that thus Piltdown neatly matched a widely anticipated result.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on that?
So, because it neatly matched it, it leaves little room for error about like brain primacy being incorrect or basically being fraudulent.
Do you know the word like facile?
Mm-mm. Like it sounds
So,
like it's odd.
so it's like um okay. It's like it's too neat, right? It's like too perfect. Um like if science of the day said that there's brain primacy and we just so happen to find some ancient hominid that had a big brain and, you know, more apish body, that would support the brain primacy part, right?
Mhm.
And it's a little bit too neat. It's too clean cut. It's like it's a little bit too easy. Right.
Like to say that like basically like the evidence that Smith saw is a little too neat, is what you're saying?
Yeah, it's a little bit too like so neat that it's like I'm trying to think of like an example or something, but it's like um
Like a little too perfectly.
yeah, yeah, right? Because
Yeah.
it's the brain primacy came before the I would imagine came before the discovery of Piltdown Man,
Yeah.
and that could be like kind of like someone like fudging like the like okay, let's say that you're in a lab and you want to prove something, and you're gonna kind of like cherry pick, or you're gonna kind of like do something that will like help prove that thing, even if it's not a true thing. So the brain
Uh,
premise thing, uh
Yeah.
it's like too it fits in too neatly with that.
Okay, I see. It makes sense. So then that would align with B of being suspicious of science that confirms.
Hmm.
Well, yeah, like confirms something that is a little too perfect.
Hmm. So okay, so A, brain is an organ that says little about what makes humans special. The author thinks that doesn't think that it's the author does not believe in the brain primacy, but that just means that the brain evolved before other stuff. doesn't mean that he thinks that the brain doesn't matter,
Yeah.
right? And then C, fraudulent science can be harmful in unexpected ways. We did talk about what you said, um, about the racial views.
Hmm.
Um, but I think that, let's see. Oh, okay. This is a very, very tricky one. Um, because we also talked about in the last paragraph, um, how can we say that? It was something like a little bit too, um, oh, the first sentence here. Piltdown also supported some all too familiar racial views among white Europeans about the factually inadequate. Yeah. So, okay. So I think the reason that C would be wrong is because these racial views existed prior to this discovery.
Oh, I see. So it didn't necessarily lead to
Mhm.
that harm already existed. They just used it to justify the harm that didn't create the harm.
Yeah, I think they switched cause and effect here.
Yeah.
So, but this is a really hard one because I think it's very hard to choose like between B and C.
Yeah.
So I think C is just wrong because they're saying that it's an effect. So if you're saying that this Piltdown man caused racism is not exactly accurate. It's more like there's already racism, and then they found Piltdown Man, and it confirms their racism.
Mhm.
So, but very, very tricky one here. I'm gonna guess a lot chose C.
Okay, good solution.
Mhm. Yeah, 38% chose C. So you see how like, the wrong answers, like the trap answers rather, like, there's a
Yeah.
lot of basis behind them, but it's just like a really nuanced term or something that,
Mhm.
but yep.
The author of the passage probably most strongly supports expanding the reach of paleontology science throughout the world. Um, I mean, I feel like that's not necessarily like I feel like it's a little too broad to be the right answer. Like, and we don't necessarily mention paleontological reach across the world. And doesn't it say that it also becomes like it starts to become like a talking point with like Piltman?
Yeah,
So it's
he
obviously
never,
expanded.
yeah, they never mention anything about paleontology except for the first paragraph where the author just says he is a paleontologist, but that's it.
Yeah. Funding paleontological field excavations instead of museum exhibits. So it talks about excavations in paragraph 2, I think, when it's talking about those two scientists who went on those, but it doesn't necessarily mention anything in favor of it being a good thing or a bad thing. It's just kind of brought up.
Yeah, and those weren't paleontological ones, right?
Yeah.
So another thing you could do faster to is like just double click. Yeah, like
Oh,
decel. Yeah, just double click twice. Yeah, there you go.
oh.
Mhm.
Use scientific analysis to evaluate cultural preconceptions. Um, I think that like the author says that we like it kind of like paves out how like everything works out so neatly. So we should use analysis to kind of combat those like those preconceptions, I guess,
Okay.
and then discourage the inclusion of racial data in paleontological analysis. Um, I don't think the author would be discouraging towards that because like it is utilized, I guess, to like kind of come to the conclude like I guess like I don't like the author talks about how like I guess like the term racial data is what confuses me a little bit because I see that kind of as like numbers and like collecting data and things like that. But I guess like in the passage, like the bad thing is that like it's you like I guess like it's used like that paleontological analysis is used in favor from one race in regards to another. So that's where my confusion comes up.
So we know that um okay, so we know that the okay, so we know that there's a pre okay, so which one do you like better?
I like C better
All right, tell me why.
because C, they are these like, I guess like you can use the scientific analyses, I guess, to kind of push down those cultural preconceptions as like it's like you see that in the passage almost like how like they kind of like take that analysis and like they show how like it's done incorrectly and like goes to show like this is why like certain things were done to like I guess like yeah like it uses it to in a way that disproves things that were done with paleontological
What do you
data
think the cultural preconceptions is referring to?
like the brain primacy and white supremacy.
Good,
But
good.
more so I think brain primacy.
Uh-huh. So, so good. Okay. Um, so yeah, that's going to be better than D because D, let's think about the different ways you could eliminate this. So, discouraging the inclusion of racial data. As you said, data is like, numbers and facts and stuff. And this person is a scientist and paleontologist, so I don't think he's going to necessarily discourage the inclusion of racial data. Um, but that also doesn't mean that he's, going to be perpetuating, the white supremacist ideas. Um, so yeah, I don't think that he would discourage that for D. Um, and so that's one reason. Another reason I would say is probably localization. They only mention racial data in one paragraph. Where
Yeah.
C, and you always want like the more kind of general ones because they can like capsulate the other stuff. So like using scientific analyses to evaluate cultural preconceptions. Cultural preconceptions could be synonymous to the brain primacy. It could be synonymous to the racial stuff as well.
Mhm.
So you see how D is just the racial stuff, paragraph 6, but C is cultural preconceptions that go from paragraph 5, cultural biases, brain primacy, and 6 with the racial thing.
Mhm.
And ultimately, it's what science that, you know, disproves the bad stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
And then which of the following is assumed to be true? Which of the following, if assumed to be true, would provide the best evidence to support the author's conclusion about how people could be tricked by Piltdown Man?
All right.
So,
So this type of question is like, okay, what? So this question is basically the type of question that says, I'm going to give you a couple of evidence, like choices about clear like evidence that we assume to be real.
Mhm.
Which of the evidence, like which evidence would support the author's conclusion about how people could be tricked by Piltdown Man, right?
So, um, I feel like this is like super broad.
So,
So,
um, so so this would be a main idea question, and our main idea is that people believed Piltdown because of the cultural biases and stuff. So we want to see, okay, what can be an example of how people could be tricked into believing that, right?
like, what's an example of basically basically, I guess, what's an example of how people were tricked into like the trap of believing Piltdown Man that the author states?
Hmm.
So it could be because
Yep,
'cause of the brain primacy thing.
that could be something, but yep.
So few fossils were found in Piltdown beside the skull fragments and jawbone. It doesn't necessarily say anything like that. And also wouldn't it be like assumed that if it's from two different animals that like there are readily available fragments?
So if there were more than two, say what you said again.
Like, wouldn't it be assumed that if there were two, there should like if they found two from two different animals, I guess that there are fossils readily available, but I guess shouldn't maybe now that I say it out loud, maybe it should be the opposite of oh, like there weren't that many available, so they just kind of pushed two together and said, oh, these are from the same animal.
If they found a bunch of different animals, they can mix that up, right?
Yeah.
Take the head from one and the jaw from the other.
Yeah.
But if there was like no other bones found and just those,
Mm.
that would support what idea?
If there were no other bones except those two found, it would support the idea that they are from the same animal, I
Huh?
guess.
So support the Piltdown Man hoax, right?
Yeah.
Or like be one of the reasons why someone might believe that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Piltdown Man's tools were less advanced that those found with Peking Man. Um, it does talk about the tools of Piltdown Man, but it doesn't mention the tools of Peking Man.
So be careful with that type of thing.
Yeah.
Because they're saying which of the following, if true. So you want to if you are if you say that a choice is eliminated because they never mentioned it in the passage, be very careful.
Mhm.
Okay. So none of these things, yeah. So none of these things are going to be like they never mentioned that few fossils were found in Piltdown beside the skull fragments and jawbone, right?
Yeah.
So none of these are going to be in the passage.
Yeah.
But if these are true statements,
And it would align with what the author is saying.
yep.
Okay. So, I mean, if this were true, it wouldn't. The author is saying that Piltdown Man was a fraud, and Piltdown Man is tied to Peking Man to like, I guess, better like to like for like like biases and like intentions and things. So that wouldn't align with what the author is saying.
Well, so the question's asking like what would support the conclusion of like how people could be tricked by Piltdown Man?
Trick. Okay.
So for B, tell me about that.
So B, I guess, could say that it would be like could trick people because Well, I guess like it wouldn't. Well, this is saying that Piltdown Man's tools were less advanced than those found with Peking Man.
Yep.
And wouldn't that go like be the opposite of what they're trying to trick people into believing? Or what like
Because they're trying to trick people into believing that Piltdown Man is smarter.
Mhm.
So if it turned out to be the case that uh his tools were less advanced, then so okay, we start off by saying Piltdown Man is smart, Taking Man is not as smart.
Mhm.
Let's say we find evidence that says Piltdown Man's tools are less advanced than Peking Man's tools. That's
Mhm.
going to go against that idea that Piltdown Man is smarter,
Mhm.
right? So if people found that out, they'd be less likely to be tricked, right?
Okay, yeah. I think
What
I
about?
think I was confusing what the question was asking.
Hmm?
Many leading paleontologists of the day doubted Piltdown Man's authenticity. I think if many people doubted it, then people would be would doubt it too, so they wouldn't be tricked. It'd be the opposite effect.
Uh-huh. So I would say either opposite effect or no effect.
Yeah.
I'm saying the no effect is because we look at our map, we have tons of evidence from actual, like, paleontologists, anthropologists, etc. Like, there's no one in the passage. Everyone who was of, you know, knowledge about this said it knew it was a fake. The only people who didn't think it was a fake were like the regular people.
Mhm.
So, so yeah, so C would either be, you know, like less of
No
it
effect.
or like, yeah, no effect. All
Okay.
right.
And then Peking Man was also a faked fossil of an ancient human. So that wouldn't trick people because if there was doubt, there's doubt for that one too. So like it would people would be less inclined to believe that um Hilfman was real as well.
So, so if Peking Man was faked, um, yeah, I guess it either wouldn't affect the argument or it would, yeah, I guess, yeah, it wouldn't really affect it. So I guess so C and D could be not really affected, and B could be kind of like the opposite, make you think the opposite, that the Peking Man is smarter.
Mhm.
But yeah, I'm surprised 25% chose D. But yep, this is a tough one too.
Yeah.
All right. So, what are your thoughts about how we went over it today and like compared to like what you normally do?
I feel like this was definitely a hard passage, but I think I'm after doing this one, I feel like I'm starting to catch on like how I can highlight a little differently and how I can like kind of begin to pull out
Hmm.
more important pieces rather than I've
Rather than,
this with you a couple times when I do them alone, I have a tendency to write like a summary of every single sentence versus when we do them, we just kind of like pick out like important things.
yeah,
So
if it's fast, I mean, it doesn't have to take like if it takes long, then don't worry about it. But if you want to show me like an example of one of your maps, maybe I can take a look at it. But
yeah, I can email it to you as well. Or it'd be if you could send me a passage after this and I can like do that one before we meet next time and then we can compare our maps. That I feel like that'd be really helpful for me to just make sure that I'm kind of on the right track.
yeah, because like the stuff that we wrote in the map here, like it's not you don't want to write summaries.
Yeah, I think I have a bad habit of like writing a complete summary of what's in the passage, like in that paragraph.
That's common because like I said, like a lot of times with my car students, like I would we would go over like a passage and then we'd compare the map that they write and the map that we write together. And it's usually like, so something like paragraph one, if you wanted to do it kind of in the wrong way, would be like um paleontology, uh yeah, paleontology, and then like there's Piltdown Man, which is a fraud. Then people can't tell this dinosaur from another dinosaur. And like let's say for example, like the next let me try to find like a really good example for this. So but ultimately, like, yeah, when you review this, I want you to like, see how the stuff that I highlight is not a lot, but if you just read what I highlight, it kind of functions as the pseudo map. So for
Yeah.
instance, paragraph two here, we have all this text, right? But what I highlighted is just 1912, like whatever, Dawson, cranial, um, the Woodward thing.
Mhm.
But anyway, that first sentence isn't too important. It's just evidence. But then we say the skull appeared modern in form, although bones were unusually thick. So again, we talked about the although and the unusually part. And then they said that they looked for other stuff. Don't really care about that, like the
Mhm.
details of that. And then they find that the jaw was, if we didn't know what apish is, they say that the cranium was human. So whatever apish is not human.
Yeah.
So, and then they said two separate mixed together. And in the map, I wrote skull modern, jaw apish. So modern skull, right? And um, human cranium. So I just wrote skull is modern. And then the bone's really thick and apish jaw. So jaw apish, and then just 1912 for the evidence. And that this could be a fraud involving the separate animals being mixed together. So yeah, um, you can see that we're just taking arguments. So
Yeah.
we don't want to give summaries, like objective summaries.
And then I know that our focus has been cars, but like um
Mhm.
moving forward, like I'm doing like the U World like I'm doing like targeted review and things with U World, but like what else can I do, I guess, to like get like my biochem score up? Because that has been like a consistent like other than target, do you think targeted review is gonna help me the most, or is there anything else I should do?
So the targeted review is going to be, so you said you were going to take a full length,
Yeah,
um,
I took full length one.
uh, uh, your next full length you're taking. Oh, wait.
On Tuesdays. Yeah, I think that's the best day for me to be taking them.
So the targeted review is just when you do your full length, and you identify content areas that you're having trouble with still, then
Yeah.
like let's say you get a question wrong on buoyant force, another question wrong on like acid base titration, another question wrong on like Hardy Weinberg, you want to go to UWorld and then select those topics.
Uh-huh.
Like the Hardy Weinberg genetic thing, the buoyant force stuff, and like the acid base titration, and yeah, going about it that way.
For my U World, when I open it up, like it's like it's very much like mixed. And I know that's how like it is, I guess, but like how can I make it super targeted? Because like for example, in psych, like I missed like Alport's personality trait theory. So, but then at that point, it's like all of these. So do I just have to keep going through all of them until I get like a question on like people comparing people's theories or like
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm not that familiar with the layout, but if what is this search button?
search bar? Oh,
On
there.
I guess it's
Maybe
got previously tested questions.
that's it. But I guess I haven't done any questions, so there's like nothing you can really find.
Oh, I see, I see.
Like
Um,
it's like completely reset.
let me where you were just at right before?
Search
Uh, the
or the
window.
stack.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, these are the like from the book that they try to sell.
Yeah, so maybe that, because like this, if you click on that, like oh, this is just ebook.
I only have access to the first free chapter. I don't have access to any of their other stuff.
But for this, do they have like associated like problems?
They
Let's
do. Yeah, they do.
scroll down. Oh, go back to
So
that.
I
Yeah.
think cool. I guess I'm not sure if they list them here,
All
but
the
I know.
all the way to the bottom. Go up a little bit more. Oh, I guess the questions are just these concept ones then.
Uh,
Yeah. So, um, I wonder if you could do that, but
I mean, I'm sure there might be something on Reddit that I could look up and be like, oh, like find like an associated type of thing versus like what concepts are associated with what sections and just kind of go until I get them.
hmm yeah. I'm trying to see if they even, yeah, if they offer anything like that. If you go to make that custom test, I want to see what you might get. What
Um,
that we choose. Um, what was I talking about? So let's say for physics,
mhm.
um, let's hit fluids perhaps. And hmm,
Any questions?
yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure how else to really do it.
I mean, my plan was already to finish, like my plan is to finish all of UWorld regardless.
Yeah. So
Because
okay,
I have it until January 1st.
got it. So
Then start.
uh-huh. So okay, we can do that. And
Should I just do like UWorld, a little bit of UWorld every single day at that point then, or
so I forgot the AMC section bank. You did that before?
I'm in the middle of doing AMC question bank. Or section bank. I haven't finished it yet
Okay.
because I
So
gotta
and you said you're taking your test on the 5th?
then my next test, yes, it's gonna be on that Tuesday.
Good. Okay. So let's see if we can finish that section bank by
Okay.
um and and then you'll do your test on Tuesday the 5th. And, for your blind review, remember just do the ones that you got wrong the first time.
Yeah.
And then regular review, which is just reading the solutions.
Yeah.
And then we should meet sometime like after that test.
Mhm.
And then, if there's still section bank stuff to do, you can continue to do that. But
Okay.
once we're finished with that, it'll be the pattern of practice test, review practice test, and then UWorld stuff in between the practice tests.
Yeah. And the reviewing and the blind review should only take me a day then, I'm assuming, correct? Like I only get that one day.
Yep.
Okay, perfect. Then I would do that.
Yep. Do you want me to put you in for next time?
Yes, I can go. I mean, I was planning on meeting with you on Mondays, but now I think Wednesdays would work better since I'm doing those. Or I mean, I guess maybe Thursdays since I'm doing those reviews, and then afterwards by Thursday I should know.
All right. Do you want to do 2 p.m. Thursday the 7th Eastern?
Yes, that's perfect.
All right. 2 p.m. Eastern, Thursday,
Okay, perfect.
7.
And then and then I'll just go in on your schedule and I'll book myself every other Thursday if you want. If
Yep.
you have the
Or
availability on it.
spot and stuff.
I don't think I have any upcoming like other things with you, correct? Other than just the 7th. I don't think I booked myself otherwise.
Oh yeah, I don't think so either.
Okay.
So let's see. So for today, it should be, let's see. $182.
Okay. Let me send that. It is sending. Okay, I sent it.
I forgot, was this through Zelle or what? Oh, Zelle. Okay, yep. I got it.
Okay, perfect. Thanks, Shane.
All right, thank you. All right, take care.